Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 28th Social Justice Task Force meeting and community listening session for the city of West Hollywood. I will now call this meeting to order. All right, Vice Chair Zamilpa, can I ask you to read the land acknowledgement, please?
Yes, let me pull that up. I'm looking for it in the document. Yes, the West Hollywood Social Justice Task Force acknowledges that the land on which we gather and that is currently known as the City of West Hollywood is the occupied, unceded, seized territory of the Gabrielino, Tongva, and Gabrielino Kizh peoples.
Thank you. Thank you for reading that. For the Pledge of Allegiance, Task Force Member Shannon Morton, will you please read the Pledge of Allegiance? Jasmine, can you display it on the screen if possible?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Fantastic, thank you. All right, Jasmine, do you want to go ahead and do roll call?
Yes, sorry, there were a few folks in the waiting room.
No problem.
Okay. Chair Jonathan Wilson.
Here.
Vice Chair Daniel Zamilpa.
Here.
Task Force Member Smith.
Here.
Task Force Member Morton.
Here.
Task Force Member Aviles.
Present.
And Task Force Member Washington.
Here.
And I believe I also see Task Force Member Sephiroth.
Yes, here.
Yeah.
Excellent. So let's go ahead and do the approval of the minutes if possible. Jasmine, do you want to ask the question or take
Motion to approve minutes, Zamilpa.
Sorry, second that motion. Wilson.
Great. Chair Wilson.
Aye.
Vice Chair Zamilpa.
Aye.
Task Force Member Smith.
Aye.
Task Force Member Morton.
Aye.
Task Force Member Aviles.
Aye.
Task Force Member Washington.
Aye.
Task Force Member Sephiroth.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Great. So now it's time for the public comment section. Please note this is not the community listening session. However, this time is set aside for public comment. The public is given the opportunity to address the Social Justice Task Force on any item within its responsibility pursuant to the Brown Act. The Social Justice Task Force cannot take action on items not listed on the posted agenda. Each speaker will be allotted 2 minutes, and time may be limited or increased based on the discretion of the task force. The public comment period is to address the Social Justice Task Force on agenda items and or items of general interest within the jurisdiction of the Social Justice Task Force. If there's anyone who didn't sign up to speak and wish to provide comment, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. All right. All right. Well, let's move on to the community listening session. I believe most people are probably here for that. Diane, do you want to go ahead and lead us through the recap and then maybe ask the audience if they'd like to comment?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairperson Wilson, and good evening, everybody. We are happy to be with you this evening for a listening session hosted by the Social Justice Task Force. And just to give you a bit of background, this task force has been meeting since May 25th, 2021. with passion and concern around social justice issues for those who live and work in West Hollywood. They have entertained presentations from various city departments and other entities. They have augmented that with additional research, professional experience, and interactions as they have considered significant issues and ultimately have formed recommendations that they want to advance to the city council. This evening, the purpose of our listening is to get your thoughts, reactions, and experiences. So over the course of the evening, our process will be as follows. We will share with you the recommendations that come from the task force and its subcommittees. And following the sharing of a suite of recommendations, you will be invited to give initial feedback using a polling feature in Zoom. And then we will invite your commentary. We are going to offer each desired speaker 3 minutes for commentary, and we will enforce the time restriction around that. You are encouraged to share your affirmation, your appreciation, and/or your agreement with any element of the recommendations that lands well or resonates strongly with you. You are also encouraged to speak up and offer your perspectives, your experiences, and even any concerns you have with respect to the recommendations. This input that you offer is tremendously valuable to the task force and truly welcome. So they will be, as the title suggests, listening actively and deeply to what you have to offer. The session is devoted to comments and commentary from the public. So our task force members will not be giving you commentary, and they will not be responding to questions, but they are having devoted months and months of thought and consideration to these issues, very, very interested in hearing from you. And so we will keep that as our primary focus for the evening. All right, I would ask, are there any questions from anyone before we open it up and begin to consider our first set of recommendations? Wonderful. With that, we will begin the recommendations. The full suite of them were included with the meeting announcement. So if you want to follow along, you're more than welcome to do that. We will start with recommendations that come forward from the Economic and Community Development Subcommittee. This subcommittee offers up a suite of 5 recommendations, all grounded in supporting greater social justice, engagement, and opportunities for BIPOC entrepreneurs and businesses in the city. And so here are those recommendations. The first is to amend the annual business registration form to include 5 optional fields. And these fields would allow greater demographic or data gathering on the diversity represented in business ownership in the city. And so it would query about BIPOC ownership percentage, 50% or more, the affiliated race or racial categories, and allow folks to self-identify, the sharing of the total number of employees in the business, as well as specifically calling out the number of BIPOC employees and the number of BIPOC members who sit in managerial or above positions within an organization. The second part of the recommendation includes dedicating a city webpage to be proactive in providing step-by-step business guides for opening businesses, for individuals interested in opening a business in West Hollywood. This is about facilitating information and ease in process as a way of encouraging more BIPOC-owned businesses to come and operate in the city of West Hollywood. This would include all forms that must be submitted and tutorials and links. In other words, conveniently locating essential information and requirements in a convenient one-stop place so that there is a playbook that accompanies the site with a progress marker. It allows folks to easily settle in, register, and comply with requirements. Recommendation number 3 is to develop and coordinate a business incubator program that would be marketed primarily to BIPOC entrepreneurs. And through a potential public-private sponsorship with the support of the Business License Commission, there would be a series of workshops dedicated to enhancing a variety of organization capabilities, capacity building for these organizations to support their hopeful success. Recommendation number 4 is to implement a business minority certification that highlights businesses that have received official minority certifications at the state and federal levels, as well as those that have received certifications from the city of Los Angeles and any other approved programs. So this reciprocity of certification, but also a very focused database within the city of businesses that carry that minority disadvantaged business designation within the city of West Hollywood. And then finally, recommendation number 5 is to require all RFPs distributed by the city of West Hollywood to have a minimum of 20% responses in the pool of applicants from businesses with a minority BIPOC ownership stake. In other words, to expand the pool and ensure and commit to seeking out up to 20% or at least 20% representation in that pool of BIPOC-owned businesses. These 5, as you can see, are interrelated, but they are about advancing not only representation, participation, ease in operation, and capacity building support for BIPOC businesses within the city of West Hollywood, or those that do business with the city of West Hollywood. Having heard the 5 recommendations, we want to have you complete a very brief poll and invite you to think about what the subcommittee is seeking to do broadly across these 5 recommendations. And in your opinion, to what degree do these recommendations ring as relevant to helping to advance social justice in the economic and community development space? So Jasmine, if you would launch that poll for us, that would be great. And I'm going to invite everyone except for our task force members to complete the poll around how relevant you find these suggested recommendations to be. You're doing really well. Excellent. I'm going to give it just about 10 more seconds, and we are happy to share the results with you. Excellent. So Jasmine, if you would end the poll and share the results. As you can see from the overall ratings received, 71% of our respondents indicated that they found these areas addressed in the recommendations to be very relevant. 29% that these are somewhat relevant, and there was no one who did not feel these were not relevant to advancing social justice. So with that kind of snapshot in place, we now want to devote time to hearing from you. And you can use the raise your hand feature to let us know if you would like to comment on these recommendations. I'm going to bring them up and remind you, we're open to hearing the whole range, the aspects of the recommendation that you like, that you feel are important and will make a difference, to any experiences or perspectives or concerns that you want to share. We also want to hear that. And so the floor is now open to any member of our public who would like to comment on the 5 recommendations that have come from economic development. I see Andrew. Andrew, the floor is yours for 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I think this presentation is great. And like just one small comment I would make, I think it probably mostly pertains to recommendation number 4 about attaining a certification of a BIPOC business. Like there's been various times over the past couple of years where I've Googled like West Hollywood Black-owned business or West Hollywood BIPOC-owned business. I just did it right now. And you get like some Discover Los Angeles, UncoverLA.com articles, but nothing like specific to West Hollywood. And I guess like the recommendation that I would like to see is that y'all are putting this together. I would love to see the city have a place where not only like our businesses obtaining these minority certifications, but also the city is highlighting what businesses locally have obtained them for the end user, like for the customer, for me. So like if I want to go to, you know, a BIPOC owned coffee shop, like I can go like and find a website that's at weho.org. And it's a site that shows like what are our businesses in town that are promoting these ideals. And like, you know, maybe the city could spend like a little bit of money on the SEO to make sure that when people just Google this like basic sort of information,
Yes.
What are the businesses, they can find it.
That's really so very helpful. Thank you, Andrew, for that comment. And so it is about not only capturing the information, but making it easily accessible for those who might want to specifically or intentionally know. Love that. Thank you. Do we have anyone else who
I see,
desires?
Diane, I see Robert Oliver has his hand up. Robert, you can unmute and turn your camera on if you want. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Chair, task force members. I really like these recommendations. I think there's some really great ideas. And one of the things that we talk about, my name is Robert Oliver. I'm a public safety commissioner, but I'm tonight obviously speaking only as a resident. We talk about funding parity a lot. So putting our money where our mouths are, we can talk and talk and talk and talk and on every board and commission, but unless we're actually matching that with dollars that will help create the programming that creates parity. It came up last night at a council meeting, I like numbers, let's see, 2 and 3. That's going to take some funding, but I think that really will give people the tools, BIPOC people who don't run a business right now, but want to and could, so that on the one hand, we're addressing kind of the day-to-day things that BIPOC people are telling us they're experiencing in this community, but also at the same time creating opportunities to run and own businesses, which is absolutely necessary if we want to be that inclusive and equitable city. And so I think it's great. I do want to see kind of one thing in general in government. There's a lot of maybe we spend money on a program, but we don't market it, for example. Like there was the Black Market pop-up. Great event, great idea, and some great businesses. Like I actually found some great new businesses that I will now go to personally, but the attendance wasn't great because it wasn't marketed enough. And so making sure that we have this great program, but also that enough people know about it. And then once people do start businesses, that we fund the marketing to let people know. I think what the last commenter, Mr. Solomon, said is really important, the follow-up. So anyway, I don't want to take up the whole meeting, but I just wanted to say those comments. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And again, very valuable input, particularly around not only a verbalization of support, but backing that up with funding parity, which means be willing to make the investment, be willing to offer the support. And I loved what you said, which sits in that space around capacity building, be willing to provide both resources, but guidance around marketing so that it isn't the best kept secret, it's actually beneficial as intended. Thank you so much. I see Alexander's hand. Alexander, are
Yes.
you on mute? There you go.
Hi there. Good evening. Hi there. Well, firstly, thank you, task force members, for your service and everything that you're doing. I think the recommendations outlined here are a fantastic start. What I did notice that was missing is some sort of communication or integration, I think, with the West Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. So that is an organization that's been around for almost 100 years, or I think a little bit over 100 years now, that is tapped into the business community, the economic drivers of the community. So I think it's important to somehow see what synergies might be available if the city could generate amongst the chamber. For example, we also are, and I'm involved in the formation of the West Hollywood Chamber Foundation, Small Business Foundation. So that we also have a mission of supporting BIPOC business through mentorship, grants, education, networking. So we're trying to make a difference as well. So I know the challenge that we've got ahead of us is immense, and it's taken centuries to get here. So it's going to take a lot for us to get out of it. So whatever partnerships we can come along the way, I definitely support. I think the chamber might be able to help the city. Certainly, appreciate everything the city is trying to do to get us in a good direction. So again, just really appreciate it and looking forward to figuring out ways to just get this going.
Excellent point. So really taking advantage of the synergy and collaboration, common vision makes for great partners. Love that. Did we have anyone else who wanted to comment on this item before we go to our next set of recommendations? And thank you all for modeling perfectly. This is exactly what we had hoped from this engagement. And so with that said, we'd like to move to a series of recommendations that come from our public safety working group. And the first recommendations relate to rectifying issues related to social justice as it's connected to cannabis. And so first part of the recommendation is to expand legal services and resources to provide expungement or reduced offenses for nonviolent cannabis-related crimes. Recognizing the law has changed does not negate that the residual detriments associated with a prior time is not still a lingering barrier for some. So how can there be support in the legal support space and expungement of records? Recommendation 1B, or the second part of this, would be to implement reparations tax from all cannabis-related sales to offset the racial disparity in cannabis-related arrests due to the impacts inflicted on communities of color caused by racist policies and practices. And again, this is about trying to bring a way of righting the wrongs and recognizing that resources are needed. Even as the law has changed, people don't always have the resources necessary to get themselves in a position to rectify and uplift from these harms. So we're going to get your reaction by way of poll on 1A and 1B from our Public Safety Committee first. So Jasmine, if you would launch that poll for us, that would be great. How relevant do you see this item, this set of recommendations as it relates to advancing social justice? You're doing wonderfully. I think we have just one or two more people. Fantastic. Okay, very good. Jasmine, if you could end the poll and share the results. And again, we are looking at strongly that the folks who join us today are connecting well with the focus of this set of recommendations. And so with that, we are going to ask to hear from you. And if you would like to speak on these recommendations, you can raise your hand. Okay. Carrie, I see your hand, and Jasmine, you can share the results if folks didn't see that, but I think they did, and we can just take it down. Carrie.
Hi, this is Carrie Balbo, and I apologize for my voice. What I would say is I agree with everything that's here. What I disagree with is the implementation of a new tax. And the reason that I think that that could be adverse is, you know, let's face it, there are dispensaries and cannabis related businesses all around us. And if we put an additional tax on top of the dispensaries here in West Hollywood, people can easily walk across the street in some instances. I do agree with the allocation of dollars. I just don't know that it needs to be a new tax. It could be coming from a portion of the taxes already collected by the city. That's my only recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. And what I hear in your comments is the notion of creating resources is supported. The mechanics of people simply choosing to purchase from other entities to avoid the taxing may not accomplish what's ultimately desired here. Okay, I hear that. Thank you. Robert Oliver.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo what Carrie said. That makes sense. Like I definitely support the redistributive part of that, but the question is from where. And I forget how the poll was, what the results were, but I think it's hard to see it as anything but very relevant, given, you know, the history of drug enforcement and who's been incarcerated and who hasn't, and now who's running businesses and profiting off of the same thing that people were arrested for not too many years ago. And so I think I think it's a very good move, but I definitely think, you know, the taxes add up to a lot now. It's like something like 30% or so. So adding to it's one thing, but looking at where it's going now and maybe redirecting it might be a better avenue. So thank you.
Thank you. Alexander.
Yeah, just quickly, I think, again, these are fantastic recommendations. I like the creativity in terms of the reparation tax. I agree with the previous two speakers who had just mentioned that maybe perhaps it's a way of just adjusting the tax formula rather than adding on an additional tax. But certainly, I think this is a very creative way to deal with the real social injustice that went along with that enforcement from prior years. There was an article recently about the Detroit cannabis industry. I'm not sure if you all read, I think that was in the LA Times or New York Times, regarding their efforts in terms of equity, and it's been a disaster. So I think this is an appropriate way. So I definitely, appreciate you all thinking about this creatively in a way that is effective immediately.
Great. I'm sure the task force is very encouraged by what each of you have shared in this space. The Public Safety Task Force has 2 additional recommendations that they would like to bring up, and they are different from cannabis. So we've broken them up in that way. So our next set of recommendations that come from them, one of the recommendations deals with decriminalizing sex work, and the second deals with the examination and investigation of the city of West Hollywood's contract with the LA County Sheriff's Department. So recommendation number 2, decriminalize sex work and expand legal services and resources to provide expungement or reduced offenses for nonviolent sex work related crimes. Excuse me. And then the third recommendation is examine and investigate the city of West Hollywood's contract with the LA County Sheriff's Department. And at the heart of this is about identifying patterns, disparities, concerns around whether the practices match the social justice values that the task force feels this entire endeavor is supposed to uplift. So are we operating in a values consistent way? And if that contract needs to be re-examined for those purposes. With that said, we're going to launch a second poll, another poll that invites you to speak to whether you think these 2 recommendations address relevant content, and then get your comment. Very good. Doing well, doing very well. Right, just about there. I think I need just maybe one more person to weigh in, and we are done. Fantastic. Okay. You can share our results. So we're on a roll, a very positive roll as it relates to the relevance of these areas. And as always, very interested in hearing your additional commentary on this. So thank you, Jasmine, for sharing those results. And the floor is now open to hear any additional comments or feedback you would like to offer about these 2 recommendations. Carrie.
I think there are solid recommendations. The one thing that I would offer about recommendation 3 is to also examine the results that are pending from the Center for Police Equity as part of your research and input into the contract with the sheriffs. And in my opinion, being as specific as possible, the sheriff contract itself is a template that, the cities that use the sheriff are required to use. So contract cities use it. I don't know that you're looking just for the contract alone. So my 2 recommendations would be to expand the purview potentially beyond the base contract itself, because it's a template. It's very standard, into perhaps anything that's going on in the Civilian Oversight Commission, in WeHo itself, and the reports that are published and or not published, and then what's going on with our specific city's request for the Center of Policing Equity to complete a study.
Very good. Duly noted and very helpful. Thank you for that. I saw Richard Tucci.
Thank you. I was just wondering, as part of these recommendations, if you were working with the with SWAP, the Sex Workers Outreach Project.
That is a great question. I've not, our task force members are not in in this process able to respond to that, but I would say we're going to add that to staff. I know we have talked about expanding that connection and info gathering with other organizations. And if we're not, we're adding that to it based on your comment, Richard. And that is an excellent organization. I do know of their work. So thank you for that. I see Alexander's hand.
Yes, again, so I think the recommendations, very good. I would just add that typically when I talk about or think about police relations and social equity, I do bring up President Obama's task force for 21st century policing and the recommendations that came from that task force, and always just trying to figure out ways that we can incorporate it as a community and as organizations. So I would just, give a shout out to that. That was created after the Mike Brown murder. So certainly a lot of attention, a lot of efforts were put behind that document. And at the time I was public safety commissioner many years ago when that was released and when all that sort of was happening. So definitely recommend that we somehow insert that into these recommendations or just into our conversations with the sheriffs.
It's very helpful, very helpful. Thank you for that. I don't see any additional raised hands at this point, but all of our members of the public who have weighed in, what I took away from that is you appreciate and support these 2 areas that the subcommittee is lifting up, and you have pointed towards additional resources, benchmarking, and potential collaborations that will even further enrich as well as bring broader data to bear in support of these issues. So very much appreciating that. We're going to move to recommendations that come from our 3rd subcommittee, and that subcommittee is on housing and homelessness. And they bring forward to you 3 recommendations. The first is to allocate funds to provide interim or temporary shelter for members experiencing homelessness in West Hollywood. Although the city is currently exploring the possibility of securing Project Home Key funding to purchase the Holloway Hotel, which will serve as interim housing for members experiencing homelessness in West Hollywood, there is an immediate need to provide housing and services. Fundings should be earmarked in the event the city is not able to secure state funding resources. So the task force was very pleased with efforts already underway, initiated by the city department in this manner, and further identified that in the interim, there is an urgent or immediate need, and that's what this recommendation addresses, is that immediate need, and even potentially if the longer term becomes more complicated or is protracted, that this would still be covered in the short term. Recommendation number 2, allocate funds for a safe place where people can receive wraparound services and rely on consistent information on resources WeHo provides by providing things like lockers, storage space, showers, and bus passes, providing essentials for our unhoused neighbors to provide some safety while housing is not in place. And so this concept of wraparound services is significant to sustaining and quality of life for those who find themselves unhoused. Recommendation number 3, allocate funds for a safe place where people, oh no, wait a minute, is that the same? That seems to be the same wording. That may be an error on my part. I apologize for that. Let me take this down and get to you what the third recommendation actually is.
I
If you
believe it's
want
gonna be
to, Diane,
recommendation number 2.
I can share
Yeah.
the screen.
If
too.
you would, Jasmine, I would appreciate that. That was my error in cutting and pasting.
No problem. Let me just pull this up.
Here it is. Oh, I think our source document has it twice, so it may just be these two. I'm not sure.
Can you see my screen?
Not yet. There it is. There it is. Okay, recommendation number 3 is about hiring diverse. Can you scroll up just a bit so we can see that third one? I'm sorry, scroll down.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, and so the third recommendation actually is about allocating funds to prioritize hiring of diverse staff to support the West Hollywood 5-year plan to address homelessness in our community. And at the heart of this is around not only providing services, but speaking to the truth of how access in a social justice focused world really works. It's great to have things available. Those services are more likely to be accessed and fully utilized when individuals can see diversity of staff who understand their needs, who make them feel comfortable, who are able to take it from a concept and allow people to step into full access and use of the resources available. Thank you for that, and I apologize for that confusion. Let's do a poll around these 3 recommendations that speak to housing and homelessness. Okay, to what degree do you find that these 3 recommendations are relevant and important to advancing social justice? Oh, wonderful. You're doing really great in weighing in. And I think we may have all of our members of the public in who have weighed in on the poll. So let's share the results. Fantastic. And certainly glad that there's an appreciation of the importance of the items represented in these recommendations, and very much ready to hear your thoughts, your experiences, your comments on this. So we can stop sharing and look forward to hearing your thoughts. Alexander.
So the city has done a fantastic job in the past in terms of affordable housing. So I'm not sure if that may be another slide. I know this is mostly focused on homelessness, but in terms of affordable housing, the partnership that they have had, really the incorporation of the West Hollywood Community Housing Corporation, which I sit on the board of, has made a real difference to people in the community in terms of economic diversity, racial diversity. And it would have been impossible without the city's support in terms of the cost to develop housing within the city is astronomical. It was astronomical. Now it's totally gone off the rails into, so the city support really is vital to creating affordable housing in this city, so we can keep that sort of economic and racial diversity here, which other cities are not as serious about as what Hollywood is. So certainly grateful for that.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for that. Other thoughts, reactions, feedback related to these three recommendations from the Housing and Homelessness Subcommittee? Okay. So this is been very helpful. The committee organized itself into 3 subcommittees, and you have now looked at the recommendations that have been called out. I would affirm on behalf of the subcommittees that they talked about and explored a wide range of things, and it is not to be assumed that these are the exhaustive recommendations, but what they were careful to do is to look at priority needs, research what was underway that they would feel comfortable in endorsing, and to talk about and bring forward recommendations on areas that they felt were not being addressed in any of the efforts underway. Your comments and contributions to the conversation have been really, really helpful. And so I'm just going to offer maybe just another 5-6 minutes. Is there any other general commentary that any member of the public wants to offer to the task force around its work overall before we wrap up our listening session? Robert, yes, I see your hand.
Thank you. I wanted, I'm pointing to the agenda. I wanted to kind of touch on the housing and homelessness. One thing that I would kind of add to this is just general affordable housing. General affordable housing and also rental assistance. So creating more housing in the city, more affordable housing, but also the funding that is allocated now to help keep people in their homes if they experience domestic violence, and suddenly they're left to pay the full rent, or if they lose their job, or if their rent goes up, and instead of then having to choose between homelessness or eating, or to have that, and we do, it's just not funded enough. So I think if you tally it up, we contract out a few $100,000 total. But when you look at rent in this city, I mean, I know there are people who have dedicated their time to boards and commissions in the city who have been priced out. And that's a recent fact. And so how do we make this more affordable? That's building that affordable housing and enough of it. So I would just add that. Thank you.
Appreciating that ad. Thank you. And that certainly supports what we've heard from some of the other people who have given comments tonight. So you're in the same shared space around that. Alexander.
Okay, so this might be a random recommendation or just a random comment, but just wanted to see or say that visibility is so key. So whoever I need to thank for hosting that Juneteenth event, I think it was all you guys. So I know a lot of you here and then in the boxes were there at that event. Just amazing to see. So thank you, everyone. You know, just the social justice task force being out there, being visible, giving us opportunities to meet, be seen, was just hugely impactful. I gave a speech, it's the shortest speech I ever gave in my life because I was wearing these big sunglasses. I was tearing up, my nose almost gave out with a runny nose, so I had to scramble away from the podium. So everyone was very lucky on a hot day that I wasn't there for, you know, my maximum time because obviously I like to talk. But again, just thank you all for that, and whatever we can do to be more visible, because years ago when I first moved here, maybe 13 years, there was this website, WeHo News, had an article I'll never forget called White's Hollywood, where it was just talking about how the author, he never saw any Black people walking around town. He never imagined that there were Black people. Like, why do we care about Studio One and the racism and all that sort of stuff? But there are Black people who walk around West Hollywood. There are people of all different races, all different genders and identities. So it's great that now we're proud to be shown and seen and heard. So thank you.
Wonderful, much appreciated. Susan.
Yes, thank you, Susan Isaacs. I'm interested in the commitment to the Crenshaw North extension, because my feeling is that that will encourage more West Hollywood residents to travel south and to frequent Black-owned and minority-owned businesses, and it will encourage more BIPOC people living in the South Central area to come north to West Hollywood. I'm really disappointed that it's going to take so long. It may even happen after I'm dead, but I hope not. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah, cross-pollination across our region is so very valuable and vitally important, Wonderful. Well, yeah, I want to again thank you all for being present, for lending your time and your voices, your ideas, your connections to additional resources, your suggestions for additional partnerships, all very, very welcomed. In terms of next steps, the task force will take up in its next meeting the items that you have so wonderfully offered and finalize their comments. Finalize their recommendations. And then the final recommendations will go to City Council. And so the task force meetings are public meetings. You are more than welcome and encouraged to join as your time permits and get the latest progress report as this great group moves its work forward from thoughts and hopefully into implemented actions. With that, I am going to turn it over. And Jasmine, am I turning it back over to Chair Wilson? Chair Wilson, all yours.
Thank you very much, Dan. Great job facilitating. So at this time, let's go through items for the task force members and any kind of subcommittee report outs that are important this time. So let's discuss any progress and updates that the subcommittees might have. Is there anything in particular that needs to be brought forth? I know that I, for one, do have a question in terms of, are we going to meet in our subcommittees between now and July 19th? And that's more of a question to staff, that we can get some clarity on that during the item from staff or now.
Is there a request for subcommittee members is the intention to kind of debrief and reshape some of the recommendations based on feedback?
Yes, I mean, that I feel like that would be a reasonable next step, because if we presented the exact same thing on July 19th, it may not show that we were listening truly to what people were saying. Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I can coordinate with task force members.
Thank you, Jasmine. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Any progress updates?
Not so much. Hi, everyone. Abe, thank you so much to members of the community who came out today. I know taking an hour out of your day, especially on a Tuesday afternoon, is a lot. So it does not go unnoticed. I do want to just encourage the city staff or the marketing department to provide us those assets a little earlier, so that we can share those with the members of our community, since this next one is still in person, great, on the 19th? Okay, amazing. So just want to make sure that that's communicated, and yeah, looking forward to finally meeting all of you in person officially for the first time. That'll be fun.
And just really quick, and maybe I don't understand this, but Jasmine, I thought the assets that we currently have are valid for both today's event and for the July 19th, so we can still use that again.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, I think Daniel was just saying in the future, if they are made available sooner, then yeah. Once we get them, I'll make sure to forward them off to the task force.
Thank you, team. Anything else? Shannon, do I see your hand up?
I'm just making sure I didn't look at this wrong really quick. On this asset, do you think that we could get a Zoom link on here? Because when I posted it, a lot of people wanted to know where the Zoom link was, and I could put weho.org, but it might be more simple if they can just see it on the flyer. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll follow up with our communications team.
Thank you, Task Force Member Morton.
And as a digital marketer, everybody has access to add a link on stories now. You don't have to have 10,000 followers or more, so everyone can add the link to RSVP.
And there you go.
Real-time updates. Vice Chair Zamilpa. All right. Any other questions or comments from the team? All right. So we're going to move on to item number 8, which is items from staff. So this time is set aside for staff city staff to provide information to the Social Justice Task Force on items of interest to the task force. Jasmine, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. So just a quick reminder that our next meeting is a special meeting, and it's on Tuesday, July 19th. And that's the in-person community listening session, and it will take place at Fiesta Hall at Plummer Park. So there is no need for a Zoom link for that meeting. After we have that in-person community listening session, you all will be able to debrief at the July 26th regularly scheduled task force meeting. I did also want to say, I know that it sounds like there may be a need to have a subcommittee meeting, so that way you all can make changes to the recommendations, but one thing I want to note is just so that way members of the public who weren't able to attend the virtual listening session don't see something different than the people who will be attending the in-person community listening session. It may be worthwhile for us to present the same recommendations. You all can still take in that feedback. You can still meet if you want as subcommittees, but just to make sure that people are providing results and feedback. Sorry, not results, but feedback and input on the same recommendations. We just want to make sure it's consistent, so that way council knows community members had access to the same recommendations. And
That's a valid consideration. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Didn't take into account, so thank you for that. Anything else, Jasmine?
I didn't have anything else, but I know that our community services director Yvonne had her hand up. I didn't know if she wanted to make a quick.
I do. You said what I wanted to say, so thank you so much. I think that we should hear from the what I'm calling the second group. This was our first group. We should hear from the second group, and then we'd have a debrief and sort of incorporate what we've heard tonight, and then on the 19th. And before we move on and adjourn in a few moments, I just wanted to thank the Social Justice Task Force and those who are here with us on the Zoom tonight. Some of you know me, I know some of you. I'm Yvonne Corker, the Director of Community Services, and the department oversees the Social Justice Task Force. And Jasmine and Andy have done a wonderful job putting this all together. This group of people have worked very hard together, separately, back together with Diane. Thank you so much, Diane, and her team for all that you're doing. And it's not over. You know, council took the first step with deciding to create a social justice task force, appointing these great, wonderful people who take time out of their personal lives to come and brainstorm again and think of things that can make our wonderful city even better. And then the second part is what we're doing now. We want to hear from the community. And thank you so much for everybody who participated. Alexander, I'd love to hear you speak, so you can never speak too much because it's very thoughtful. Thank you so much to Carrie, and I'm just looking down the list. Everybody, thank you so much for being a part of it. And like I said, this is the second important part to this process, is hearing from our community and what they want and what they'd like for the city to do. So again, thank you so much.
Great, thank you for that.
I don't have anything else though, Chair.
Great, thank you. So let's move on to item number 9. So while again, thank you goes out to the community members that spoke, and of course to all of my teammates within the commission, so task force. I appreciate all of you and absolutely the staff. So we wouldn't be here without everybody working together hand in hand. From a public comment standpoint, public comment on matters not on the agenda. So this time it's set aside for public comment. The public is given the opportunity to address the social justice task force on any item within its responsibility. So keep in mind, it does not have to be on the agenda. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the social justice task force cannot take action on items that are not listed on the posted agenda. However, each speaker will be allotted 2 minutes, and time may be limited or increased based on the discretion of the task force. This public comment period is to address the social justice task force on agenda items and/or items of general interest within the jurisdiction of the social justice task force. If there's anyone who didn't sign up to speak or wish to provide comment, and please use your raise your hand feature in Zoom. Is there any additional comments that you want to make? All right. Well, thank you for all the comments that were made prior to this. So at this stage, we will adjourn. The Social Justice Task Force will adjourn to its next regular scheduled meeting. It's actually not regular, but it's our next meeting on Tuesday, July 19th at 6 p.m. It'll be held in person at Plummer Park and Fiesta Hall, located at 1166 North Vista Street, and that is West Hollywood, California, 90046. Look forward to seeing you there, and until then, enjoy your 4th.